The dawn that changed my life broke over the mesas like fire spilling across the sky. I remember standing at the edge of the ranch porch, clutching the shawl tighter around my shoulders, wondering if the loneliness would ever let go of me. The land stretched endlessly, golden grass waving in the wind, the dark line of the distant mountains, the silence broken only by coyotes fading into sleep. It was beautiful, yes, but it was also merciless. Out here, every morning felt like a test, and my heart carried the weight of solitude as heavy as the buckets of water I hauled from the well. I hadn't chosen this life. My father had once been a trader, my mother a strong ranch woman, but disease had taken them both when I was barely a woman grown. Since then, I'd been keeping the ranch afloat on my own, patching fences, branding cattle, and hiding tears in the shadows where no one could see. Neighbors came by now and then, kind enough with offers of help or marriage, but I never felt it in my heart to accept. My pride was as stubborn as the soil I worked. That morning, though, that morning was different. The sound of hooves broke the silence. I saw riders approaching, dust rising behind them like a storm. My first thought was dread. Strangers rarely brought good news. By the time they reached my porch, I could see they were Apaches. 3 men, proud and grim-faced, their eyes sharp as flint. My heart thundered, and I froze on the steps. One of them dismounted. His hair was braided with leather, his chest scarred with old battles. He spoke in broken English, his voice low but steady. Your father owed a debt. He traded. He gave promise. Confusion swept through me. My father had been gone years now, and whatever dealings he had with them were buried with him. I told them so, but they shook their heads. Then the oldest of them stepped forward, leading a woman from behind his horse. She was tall, her eyes dark pools of fire and sorrow. Her wrists bore the faint marks of rope, though they were untied now. Your father promised bride, the Apache said simply, as if it were law. She is his gift. You keep her now. Debt is done. I gasped, staring between them. A bride to me, my cheeks burned, my voice faltered. No, no, you must be mistaken. I never asked for this. But the men only nodded once, turned their horses, and rode off, leaving the woman standing there like a shadow of fate I hadn't chosen. For a long moment, neither of us moved. The silence grew heavy, filled only by the creak of the windmill and the flap of a loose shutter. She looked at me, and I at her, and I saw a storm of emotions in her eyes: anger, shame, defiance, and something else I couldn't name. She didn't ask to be here any more than I did. I swallowed hard, my voice rough as I spoke. You don't belong to me. But, you're not my prisoner either. Her gaze softened, just slightly. She gave no answer, only lowered her eyes, then followed me inside the house when I motioned. The days that followed were some of the strangest of my life. I learned her name was Ayasha. She spoke little English, but her silence carried meaning. At first, we lived like strangers under the same roof. She would sit by the fire, her hands weaving small strands of leather or mending what was torn, while I worked the ranch from dawn till dusk. At night, I heard her crying softly, and though I told myself it wasn't my place, the sound tore at me. I found myself watching her more than I wanted to admit. She moved with quiet grace, her dark hair falling over her shoulders like a river at night. She had strength in her eyes, the kind born of survival. And slowly, she began to help feeding the chickens, tending the small garden, even riding out with me to check the cattle. Still, the townsfolk noticed. Whispers followed me when I rode into town for supplies. Men spat the word Apache with venom, and women turned their heads away. One evening, a rancher's son cornered me outside the store, sneering. "So it's true. You've taken yourself a savage bride. What's next, letting her scalp us all in our sleep?" His laugh was cruel, and my blood boiled hot. I struck him before I could think, my fist landing square on his jaw. The fight that followed left me bruised, but when I returned home and saw Ayasha's worried face, the sting of shame was worse than any wound. I told her, brokenly, "They don't understand, and maybe I don't either." For the first time, she reached out and touched my arm. Just a light touch, but it steadied me like nothing else. That night, under the wide prairie stars, we sat by the fire outside the cabin. The wind carried the scent of sage and pine. I asked her what she wanted, whether she wished to return to her people, or if she hated me for being the man she'd been bound to without choice. Her answer came slowly, but her eyes never wavered. I was not asked. But here. I am not beaten. Not chained. I am seen. The words sank into me, deeper than I knew they could. I realized then that love isn't always chosen in the way we dream it. Sometimes it comes like a storm at dawn, uninvited, impossible to refuse. As the weeks stretched into months, Ayasha and I built something neither of us expected. We worked side by side, sweat and laughter mixing with the dust of the land. She taught me her tongue in pieces, and I taught her mine. When winter came, the nights grew cold, but her presence filled the cabin with a warmth that no fire alone could give. I no longer cared for the whispers in town. I no longer cared for debts or promises made in another man's time. All that mattered was the woman who had been left at my door, who had become the center of my world without either of us meaning it.